J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI for nearly 40 years. He has recently been criticized for being gay and a cross-dresser. He has been criticized for a long time for being a racist, but you have to admire his skills as an investigator. This barely readable piece of paper was declassified by the FBI in 1977 and released. It's a memo written by J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI. The title is Assassination of President John F. Kennedy. It is about a meeting that took place between the FBI and the CIA the day after the assassination. The memo names George Bush as one of 2 CIA officials sent to get Hoover's report on the activities of the CIA's misguided anti-Castro Cubans. The memo was a scandal when it was made public in 1988 because it says that George Bush was in the CIA in 1963. It says that Bush lied when he told the public that he had no CIA experience. FBI documents record that on the day of the assassination, at 1:45 p.m., Mr. George H.W. Bush telephonically furnished the following: that he recalled hearing in recent weeks, the day and source unknown, that one James Parrott had been talking of killing the president when he comes to Houston. When questioned about the FBI documents, Bush says he does not recall making the phone call. In 1975, the Senate Select Committee on Assassinations began to investigate the CIA's role in the Kennedy assassination. The committee uncovered the CIA internal memo that Spotlight magazine wrote about, which says that Hunt was in Dallas on the day of the assassination. William Colby was director of the CIA at the time.
Oh yeah, Hunt was there all right. He and Bush were in charge of the shooters.
And he was cooperating with the committee.
But they weren't really in charge. They were just taking orders.
And supplied the committee with the Hunt memo.
From civilians, like Allen Dulles and the Rockefellers. Maybe I
Colby was suddenly fired. And, out of the blue, supposedly with no CIA experience, George Bush Sr. was appointed to take over as head of CIA.
First thing that came to me was the audio tape, which he sent to me in January of 2004. He didn't call me and let me know that he was sending it, but one day I just checked my mail, to pick up my mail, and there was a package from my father. There was no explanation of what was on this tape, so I just put the tape in my cassette recorder, and in it he outlines his knowledge of the conspiracy, which was codenamed The Big Event.
I was a bench warmer on it, and I had a reputation for honesty. I think it's essential to refocus on what this information that I've been providing you, and you alone, by the way, consists of. What is important in the story is that we've backtracked the chain of command up through Cordmeyer and laying the doings at the doorstep of LBJ.
He was sick, and he wrote this out, as you can see by the handwriting, with great difficulty. It's a little hard to read some of it, but at the top here we have the initials LBJ, which of course was a vice president at the time. Below this we have Cordmeyer, who was a CIA officer. Below that we have named David Morales, who was also a CIA, I don't know if he was official CIA, but I'm certainly heard his name before in relation to contract work that he did with the CIA. I think he was a pretty serious guy, capable of doing just about anything. And to the right, the next name is Bill Harvey, who was a very flamboyant CIA man, carried around a couple pistols in his belt at all times, was a heavy drinker. And below at the bottom it says French gunman Grassy Knoll.
I mean, you've said now that David Phillips apparently met with Oswald in Mexico City before the assassination. You've said that Bill Harvey may very well have recruited a French or Corsican gunman to shoot. And you've also said that Cordmeyer had a motive in that his wife was having an affair with John F. Kennedy.
I heard from Frank that LBJ had designated Cord Meyer Jr. to undertake a larger organization while keeping it totally secret. I think that LBJ settled on Meyer as an opportunist, Perrin like himself, Perrin, and a man who had very little left to him in life ever since JFK had taken Cord's wife as one of his mistresses, and of course could not number Cord Meyer among JFK's admirers. Quite the contrary.
These men are alleged to have hated the Kennedys for withdrawing air support for the failed Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961, and Morales admitted to his ex-lawyer that he was involved in both Kennedy assassinations.
Well, it was something like, I was in Dallas when we got that motherfucker, and I was in Los Angeles when we got the little bastard. What it said to me was that he was in some way implicated with the death of John Kennedy, and let's go one step further, and also Bobby.
One of the most stunning revelations about Nixon to be uncovered recently is this little gem. It seems that Jack Ruby, the mafia thug who shot Oswald, who was spotted by a Dallas reporter in the Parkland Hospital in the area where the magic bullet was found on the wrong stretcher, was working for Congressman Richard Nixon in 1947. He had quit politics completely after losing the election in 1960 to Kennedy and then losing the election for governor in California in '62. But it is clear that he had a close relationship with another suspect in this case. As president, he shocked political observers by bringing in a Democrat to be his Secretary of the Treasury, the Texas Democrat who was sitting in front of Kennedy when his brains were blown out, who held Kennedy's hand and pretended that nothing was going on as he led him into the killing zone. John Connally. But after his arrest for breaking into the Watergate Hotel, while he was sitting in jail, Hunt suddenly began sending messages to Nixon that he needed $1 million to keep his mouth shut. At the same time, Hunt started talking to reporters, saying that he was a CIA assassin. To the thousands of people who believed that the CIA had killed Kennedy, this was earth-shaking news. Hunt was threatening to tell about the Kennedy assassination if Nixon didn't get him the hell out of jail and get him $1 million. He called up the FBI and told them they had to stop investigating Hunt's activities in Mexico. He said the FBI investigation would threaten to uncover the whole Bay of Pigs thing. The whole Bay of Pigs thing? What is that supposed to mean? Bob Haldeman was Nixon's chief of staff and closest advisor. Haldeman says, "It seems that in all those references to the Bay of Pigs, he was actually referring to the Kennedy assassination." Nixon was forced to resign based upon the single charge that he tried to stop the FBI from investigating Hunt. But why should Nixon care what Hunt said or what the FBI found out about the Kennedy assassination? Unless he was involved. Hoover investigated the Nazi connections of Union Bank of New York, and in 1942, the year the U.S. entered the war, the bank was seized as a Nazi asset. Prescott Bush, the president's grandfather, was a director and chief executive officer of that bank. Hoover forced Prescott Bush to give up his active political support for his favorite young politician, Adolf Hitler. However, 4 short years later, he found another young man to sponsor in politics, Nixon, who is documented as employing Jack Ruby a year after this photo was taken. Nixon, who hired Hunt, who hired Connally, was created and sponsored from the very beginning by Prescott Bush. This is George de Mohrenschildt. He was a wealthy, Russian-born Texas oil man who liked to party with minimum-wage clerks. He helped get Oswald a job at the Dallas School Book Depository. Of course, he was CIA. The night before he was to be questioned by the Senate Committee on Assassinations, his head was blown off with a shotgun. In his pocket at the time was an address book, and in his address book was the entry, Bush, George H.W., Poppy, his family nickname, 1412 West Ohio, also Zapata Petroleum, Midland.
Time and again, he would step forward and keep his promise, even when the dark clouds of political crisis gathered over America. After a deluded gunman assassinated President Kennedy, President Kennedy